Hello guys and welcome to our channel. This is WvW and it is finally here, my new build word vs word for the Untamed. And there is reasons make me believe that this build is at least one of the best builds that you can play for the Untamed word vs word right now, and I'm going to be elaborating further on that the longer we go in the video. This video have timestamps and it's gonna be extremely detailed, so hopefully you don't skip too much, since I'm gonna be going very deep on it. But it's up to you what you want to watch and not. I'm gonna be going through the gears, the traits, how to play it, what to counter it, the pros and cons, everything around it, comparing to even other builds and maybe even other classes, with tips on how to play everything in detail. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting with the gear, I have experimented with few things, but Celestial was the best option for this build, because we can get some use of the healing, and we get really good use of the concentration for going duration, and we play mostly condition, but it is a bit hybrid, so we benefit from expertise, condition damage, and we want the toughness and vitality, so nothing offer as much as Celestial. It is probably the strongest gear in the game, and a lot of builds can utilize it very well, and the Untamed is one of them. So as you see, all my armor is Celestial, and I use the kite rune. Every single piece is Celestial, and I'm using Celestial back, Celestial trinkets, Celestial accessory, and Celestial rings, Celestial amulet. Even my weapons are both Celestial, so everything is Celestial, and I'm using kite rune. I'm using the condition infusion from Word vs World, but you can switch that for healing. It will lower your damage a bit, but you can reach up to 18% reduction in damage coming from guards, and fighting around guards too much is not really, this is not a druid. You will not be able to sustain yourself very well and managing every CC or something that land on you, especially if you're fighting good players around a lot of guards or higher tier camp or stuff like that, and you might end up dead. So I could switch it for healing, but this is up to you, because the condition damage is really nice if you avoid situation when you feel like you're gonna die easily. Now, the main weapon for this build, your damaging weapon, because we have two weapons. One of them is meant for fight, and the other, well, you can fight on it, but it's not dedicated for it. It's basically for kiting. So in creating this build, I tried to find a way to make it special and offer a unique style that's not really obtainable through Soul Beast or Droid or any other ranger, and offer something that they don't really offer, and it was really good for using shortbow. So if you ever dreamt of playing rangers that really count on short bow only, this is your chance probably. There is no one probably gonna use it better than Untamed with this setup. And let's talk why. So it is a Celestial short bow, and I'm using Sigil of Earth and Sigil of Torment. So both the Sigil actually add up damage and cover Condi with your attack normally. Since we have high critical chance, 37%, and we get a lot of fury, so it's close to 60% now, and from the traits we even get like extra 10% or something, so we're gonna be doing a lot of critical hits. So our auto attack will do bleed, and Earth Sigil will do 6 seconds of bleed on a 2-second cooldown every time we critically hit. Those 6 seconds obviously is elongated by the duration, which almost close to 100% bleed uptime. And the other sigil will give you Torment, 2 stacks of Torment for 5 seconds, but AoE around the initial target that already triggered the sigil on every time you critically hit again. So it's 2-second cooldown and 5-second cooldown. And again, the Torment will be elongated by the condition duration, which we have 45% for any conditions that we apply. So it's like close to the half. Instead of 5 seconds, it's like 7 seconds, a little bit more than 7 seconds. And we also have bleed from the traits once we get to it. So your auto attack do initial bleed, it can trigger those or any other skill, but technically it can trigger both of the sigil and can trigger the traits, and you can even apply more condition through Sharpened Stone. And we build too much in the bleed. It is our main source of condition damage, but having Torment, and we can still apply Poison, Vulnerability, Cripple, and even the conditions extra from our pet skills. It means we can cover the enemy with insane amount of conditions. while we even have some corrupt. So once we get the traits, you're gonna see that we can really do a serious burst only through a short bow. You're gonna feel something between a renegade and a scourge, like you are a mini renegade and a mini scourge at the same time. The second weapon, I settled on greatsword actually. My initial thoughts was trying many things, sword, even warhorn to stealth with smoke scale, stuff like that. We're gonna get to the bits in a second, but I found greatsword to be probably the best success rate. In sword, you only can leap for 600 radius, even if you have multiple dodges, and you can jump backward like 300 or something like that. So it's too many moves, some of them not even dodges, even if you have other dodges, but the greatsword have a block that can counter with a CC and evade, and this skill is also elevate for 1000 range. This is the closest you will ever get to a droid staff on another build basically. And since we are running Celestial, we can still do some damage and fight on Greatsword, but keep in mind Greatsword is to disengage. You don't really wanna fight on Greatsword this much, and it's not really that valuable since short bow is really strong. So it's like you're nerfing yourself once you go to Greatsword basically. You don't have this much damage to add up to it. But you can still use sword dagger as another option if you want. And on Greatsword I use cleansing and energy, since we said it's already about kiting. So the moment we switch from short bow to Greatsword, we cleanse 3 condition and we get an extra dodge, so we can even dodge immediately if we want. And our dodges in combat giving us light on your feet and giving us protection, which means lower the damage and heal us. And let's explain that from the trait, how everything works basically. So I'm running typical ranger, I'm running skirmishing, wilderness survival, and untamed. So those traits are typical with any condition ranger probably. If you're running any different trait from them, some builds might use it in hybrid, but usually it's not gonna be this optimal. So let's explain why. For skirmishing, we get hidden barbs and increase the damage for our bleeding by 33%. So don't invest in condition without this trait. It's like you don't have damage. It's like you sacrifice insane amount of damage if you don't have this trait, and it doesn't make sense, whether in competitive or in PvE or whatever. If you're running any source of bleed or condition style on ranger, always take hidden barbs. Now, the miners given us swiftness and fury on weapon swap, so we're gonna have a lot of fury all the time. It's not really gonna be an insane problem, and we attack in a really fast pace. It's like a quarter second or even less. So we're gonna do a lot of hits, which mean we're gonna be triggering those sigil we talked about almost off cooldown every time. And the other one is giving us critical chance increase and damage increase if we are flanking, which is the trait that we talked about to increase even our critical chance and a little bit of damage we can get. Short bow is a skill a bit bad with power, especially the auto attack, but other skills can do at least acceptable damage. At least those 3 skills can do some acceptable damage. And we attack in very fast pace, so a little bit of power pressure will be nice, and once we get to the untamed section. So the other trait that we choose from here is sharpened edges. And sharpened edges giving us 33% on our critical chances to apply bleed by 2 seconds. It's a full duration actually, but it is a decent number, so it's like 110 or a little bit more depending on the food. Like I'm not running utility food for condition right now, and if I'm running it, it's a little bit more, so it's more than 100 per second. And it is acceptable, like every 3 hits we're gonna be applying, or 4 hits, like at least every second we're gonna be applying this once. And the last one is light on your feet. Obviously our short bow is the main weapon, we do damage exclusively on it, so light on your feet is the best thing you can have. It's a modifier for bar damage by 10% and condition duration by 10%, and it makes the short bow pierces and lowers the cooldown of all the skills and even enhance their damage if you are flanking. Now the second trait is wellness survival. Wellness survival giving us endurance recovery higher by quarter 25%, so we can dodge more simply by using this trait line, and we gain protection every time we dodge, and our protection heals. Since we have a lot of boon duration, as you see, the protection is 3 seconds instead of 2 originally, and we heal for every second for us and our bit by 238. Now for our choices, I'm using Child of Earth, which means every time I use my healing skills, I will drop a lesser muddy terrain to immobilize, cripple, and slow pulsating. It's only immobilize at initially, and then start pulsing, cripple, and slow for everyone around me, which means I cleanse 4 condition by healing, and it's really good way to lock people, since you're trying to always lock people and control their position in a build like that. We're gonna explain further when we get to the point on how to play it. And the second choice is ambidexterity. it's given us 120 condition damage. The second part of lowering duration, it's only if you are using dagger, and the extra condition damage also, it's only if I'm using dagger or torch, which basically we have nothing of with greatsword and shortbow, but it's extra condition damage, which is pretty decent comparing to the other two traits. And the last one is wilderness knowledge, which is a must for most ranger builds anyway, and we are really reliant on a lot of survival skill to lower the cooldown by 20%, giving us fury every time we use it, and cleanse to condition, which means those three skills that we are using: light reflexes, sharpened stone, and our healing troll enguant. Now for the Untamed. Untamed itself have the new Unleash Ambush skill, which means every time you unleash, you get an extra skill from here, an auto attack for every weapon. Unless you are on hammer, you get the same skill, but the entire weapon change. Obviously, we don't use hammer here. And that is the first trait. It's talking about the Untamed, and you can right click on it to see every skill for every weapon, what it does. And the second trait telling you that it gives you extra vitality is simply minor by running Untamed, and you will do a siphon damage and a siphon healing, an additional small siphon healing for every target you hit with this Unleash Ambush skill that we talked about. And the last one is a permanent effect. If your bit is unleashed, you lower the damage that coming to you by 10%. If you are unleashed, you increased your damage, power damage, it's a strike thing, ongoing damage by 15%. So it lowers the power damage coming to you and increase the power damage you apply depending on the unleash state. Now for the Unleash Ambush skill, for the short bow that we are using, if the enemy doesn't have poison on it, it will apply 2 stacks of poison and triggers the effect of siphon health and siphon damage. And if it have poison, it will apply extra torment and weakness is really good for ward versus wallet. So you do more torment, so it's more cover condi, more damage, and you weaken your enemy. And we're also running a trait with it, which is this one, make rending vines, this skill for our bit, to corrupt boons instead of removing them. So if our bit hits the enemy with this, it will change 2 boons on it to condition instead of simply removing them. And also it make our Unleash Ambush skill remove 2 boons. So right now we can get rid of 4 boons every 15 seconds if we're really accurate about it from our enemy. 2 of them will be corrupted and 2 will simply be removed. For Greatsword, it's whirl around you that will do the same, but it's simply a power hit. As you see, the character spin and do this hit, applying vulnerability, and it remove 4 boons since the Greatsword already remove boon as a skill. So at least you have an option to do it very well. If you really want to remove a lot of boons, you can use Greatsword for that. Now for our choice itself, you can technically run anyone from the first line, but I felt it was the best to run the barrier actually for more tanking. So the first one, debilitating blows, it's on 1 second cooldown every time you CC an enemy. Depending on your unleash state, you will either apply vulnerability, 5 stacks, or you will apply weakness. So we use Greatsword, which means we have 2 CCs, so it's possible to utilize something like that through Greatsword or through Shortbow, and Shortbow we only have 1 stun. That's why I said it is possible. If you use Sword Dagger instead of Greatsword, you will only have the Shortbow one, which it feels a little bit underwhelming as a trait. But the barrier, however, is almost 2k barrier every time you use a cantrip skill, which we have 2 in this build. So it helps you being a little bit more tankier. It is nice, but like I said, you can run this one, or even the last one. So the last one increase the damage of this skill, but this skill almost do no damage. It's extremely negligible. The good thing about it, it's gonna apply blindness to everyone in the radius of it, which mean 180. However, it's easy dodgeable, and the bug of bit actually teleporting and coming back or teleporting to a shorter distance, it's inconsistent. A lot of the Untamed bug, or probably all of them, are still in the game, which make landing a skill like that is very difficult to utilize blindness to its maximum effect, especially if you're kiting a lot or you fighting a fast-based enemy. And in the end, it's one blind, so only 1 hit gonna be removed from it. However, it is very decent if you time it well on a down player, you're trying to finish them, and use this skill to blind their CC and land the finisher. So you can, however, use any one of those, but I rather go with a bit of sustain, since Untamed is more about the sustain and it's not really as strong as Droid. so more sustain felt the better anyway. Now we already explained corrupting vines that will make the second skill corrupt boons and will make our unleash ambush skill, which we access every time we trigger the unleash, for 4-second window to apply the skill, and on a 15-second cooldown we can remove 2 boons. You have this effect on you to tell you exactly if you have it off cooldown or not. Now the last choice, I actually went with restorative strike. I don't recommend you go with this one. It might be usable, but I'm not really liking it this much. Let me tell you why. Smoke skill is one of the few bits that actually can utilize it well, because you can control smoke assault, which means you guaranteed to have some of those hits at least land. However, most other bits are not really easy to land their hits to begin with. They will be running behind the enemy and the enemy running from them, and they don't touch it. However, your bit needs to hit in order to give you the stacks, and you need to hit in order to give your bit the stacks. You will be hitting, that's no problem, which means your bit will get the stacks. But in order for your bit to hit a lot of hits to keep repeating the stack up to its maximum, it's not as efficient. And we mostly using short bow, so we don't have this much bar damage anyway, so in a build like that is not really as efficient to utilize Ferocious Symbiosis. Fervent Force was, well, luring to use. It's very strong since you can reset all your skills by a small margin. It's 2 seconds and on a cooldown, so if you're stuck to your short bow, you only have this skill. It doesn't even reset itself, which means it's every 20 seconds you will be able to land it once and shave 2 seconds of all your skills. It's still decent, it's still good, but the small replenishing of health all the time, no matter what hits you're doing, felt a little bit more rewarding. However, Greatsword have 2 CCs if you can land them, which means this trait can be even utilized further, but I ended up going with Restorative Strike. Now let's explain a little bit on the skill choices. This is Troll Unguent, and it is the highest healing skill Ranger have. It's really good, it heals a lot cross time, so you can use it without letting your health fall down so much, which means it gives you a lot of very decent sustain. And Lightning Reflexes will grant you a lot of vigor, and it is a dodge and will remove Immobilize and then cleanse 2 conditions from you. Sharpened Stone is a huge burst for us. And lastly, Mutate condition will give you, because of the trait choices, will give you barrier and then will cleanse all condition and give you 1 stack of vulnerability instead of them. It's 1 condition, not really a big problem. And if you are unleashed, it will give you fury, and if your bit is unleashed, it will give you vigor. So we have 2 sources of vigor that we can really have long time with. And even the elite can grant you vigor or super speed. But however, since we have 2 skills that can grant us vigor, we have some decent dodges even from the short bow and the great sword, and we have high endurance regeneration from this trait. I recommend you to never use this skill to get vigor. So always use it while you are unleashed, so you get extra super speed and you can kite faster or chase faster or do whatever you need to do. The vigor, however, is not that relevant most of the time. Unless you feel like you need it, keep using it with super speed better. Now for the bit choices. I tried using things like Raggazal and even the Crate and Hound, the dog, stuff like that, but I didn't have much success with a lot of those bits. For very good reasons, they are very clunky. In order for you to set up the bit to do the skill the moment you exactly want it, let's say Raggazal for example, it would be moving like this side and the enemy is here and you start using this skill. It doesn't really reposition itself, it just go for it to the initial location of the enemy that you immediately start on. If Raggazal had the skill under control by itself, it become a little bit more accurate since you can like start the fight with it immediately and at least draw a dodge and something like that, and it will reset itself to do it better than you actually. Even so, you can control those skills. I didn't find them to land correctly. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a bit of a bug. It is my ping probably as a delay, so the AI probably do it better. I'm not sure, but I didn't have much success with Raggazal this great, at least if I was in melee or really close to a player. So the best bet for many reasons to use with such build actually was Smoke Scale. Now here's why. So Smoke Scale can use this skill to teleport from 750 range to start dodging and sticking itself to the enemy. and it will do multiple hits with smoke assault, and you can follow it with immediately take down. You can use the same setup that the AI use basically to take down an enemy. Like, imagine if you are not controlling the bit, you can do it. But however, look what's gonna happen here. This skill have duration of 1.5 seconds, but you can interrupt it to land immediately the takedown, which mean at any point after your enemy's dodges, you can land it very accurately. So it's like you will always be landing the takedown. And if you've seen the duels video and stuff like that, you will see me do this multiple times, immediately taking down an enemy at the moment I want, not waiting for the skill to end. Let's show that again. So I'm gonna be pressing the skill simultaneously, and you see it's interrupted and it immediately go into takedown. And the middle skill, smoke field, give you a smoke field for 5 seconds, which mean you can trigger blinds simply by casting projectile inside it, as you see here, or you can stealth in it simply by leaping. It is a basic system that most rangers was using, like Second Soul Beast and stuff like that. And the other bit is iboga. So iboga given us more cover condition, since it can apply a field that do confusion, as you see here, for every single stand in it. And on a 5-second cooldown, it can cast a projectile to apply torment and confusion. And the main point of it, it is a ball from 1200 range with a 1 second immobilize. So we can, and you would see me doing it a lot in fights. On short bow, for example, I can simply go like that and ball the enemy, and the enemy will be here since it got balled, and eat my ambush skill from short bow, for example, or simply land it with CC or locking it or bullet it inside and immobilize, like timing skills with each other. Me and my bit timing exactly with each other. So this was the best success I had with those two bits, because smoke scale give you the ability to control the fight perfectly, so does iboga, and also give you the smoke field for many reasons, for the blind, for the stealth, for anything else. Now let's talk about another point for this build. For me, let me tell you, this is probably the most difficult condition build you're gonna play for ranger. There is a lot that goes into it, between controlling your weapons, between controlling your bits, between unleashing yourself, unleashing your bit, switching the bit, unleashing yourself, unleashing the bit, timing the skills like that. It can get a bit overwhelming, especially that you are very tanky, but if you slip up, if you don't have a cooldown, if you got to a fight late or too early, you will find yourself unable to recover as effective as a druid, for example. So this is probably as complicated as it gets. If you want to look for an enemy and time the unleash ambush skill with the ball, or use this skill after it, if you wanna use the smoke skill one and then countered or interrupted by using the takedown, and then trying to lock the enemy by flanking to apply immobilize instead of just cripple, you're controlling position. It can be very easy initially, like if you're really new and you don't know that much, this build gonna be very strong. It will probably give you higher success rates than druid, because druid need you to be a good player. But if you are that good, it can be very rewarding and very forgiving if you are accurate with it. However, to be accurate with this build, it takes much effort, more effort than druid in my opinion, and there is some problem with it that make it a little bit less rewarding. I still think we need not to kid ourselves. Untamed need some buffs, or at least comparing to other classes, they need some nerfs. Even if the Untamed is okay, other classes are very, very strong. Some classes to an insane level. So Untamed is simply having extra boons, a single trait for corrupt, or small barriers that can get from this skill. Things like that are not really as efficient comparing to what other classes can offer to an insane level, like bladesworn catalyst, which in my opinion probably is the most powerful elementalist right now. Like every class introduced a new elite specialization that became the best. Willbender, for example, it's like core guardian but double the efficiency, double the damage. It's very good. So Untamed needs some buffs. I couldn't wait further to unleash or release the build, but hopefully in the new batch that coming we might see some buffs, or at least to other classes some nerfs, which would be in the favor of the Untamed. So I guess this build will not just be viable, it can get better with time. Now for me personally, however, the last time I used smoke skill in a competitive build was 4 months after the release of Heart of Thorn, and after that I stopped. So I haven't used smoke skill in a very long time. It's years basically. It's close to when I started the game. Like I started on the core game and the trade system before the specialization stuff, but I barely used smoke skill. Was there for the reworks for it from the beta and then the release, and then I never used it. And for greatsword, I never used it competitively after the rework. Also for the block and stuff, it didn't used to work exactly like that. So those two setups of stealth and combo stuff, I haven't used them like at all. And to time myself well and pay attention to everything, it was a bit challenging. But if you've been playing Sikkim Soul Beast for a long time, or something like that, or playing any Power Rangers that could use smoke skill efficiently, you probably already used it. But I'm gonna be telling you some tips. So one of the very efficient thing to use with greatsword is basically every time you switch from iboga to smoke skill, even if you immediately cast a smoke field and you're running, it will be behind you. So there is few tricks that you can do that to be able to not just run away and not be able to stealth. So it's behind you and you're trying to leave like that. How are you gonna do that? The field is behind there, how are you gonna stealth? So there's few tricks that you can pull to make that possible. It's simply that you don't go to greatsword to begin with unless you already switched bit and casted the smoke field while you're hitting or something like that, and immediately go to stealth. So this is one way to do it if you have enough time or if you can predict how is the fight moving. Another method is to do that, also do it again and then block if you can't, and after the block immediately go with stealth. So you go to smoke skill and immediately go to sword and block before it casts a skill if it still needed time, and then you go to stealth. So it's either buying time with the block or simply timing the smoke skill to be out before you even go to greatsword, so you could immediately stealth. And you can even counter with other methods. If you're taking higher damage, you can CC the enemy and then do that and immediately go to stealth with hits on them and then reposition efficiency. Now also both the CC of iboga and the smoke skill will allow you to cast this skill very well. If you pull your enemy around you and simply precast it, if it didn't have stability or something like that, it will work very fine. Or if you CC the enemy and then use it or immobilize them and know they can't make it out. And as we said, smoke skill can even be way more efficient. If you know the position of the enemy very well, you can use smoke assault and then follow to stick down while casting this, so the enemy would be immediately interrupted and eat the skill without being able to get out of it. Now another trick I would like to use, this skill actually have cast time even if it doesn't show you that. Once I press it, as you see, there is time before the vines appear. And because of this time, if you board the bit while using it, it will not land. People will be walking away and getting out of it radius or simply dodging, and they will not eat the corrupt. So what you do about that? It's simply you cast this skill before casting the teleportation. So let me show you an example. So we're gonna do that and then teleport it, and once it was boarded, it land this skill. So it make it very harder to avoid. However, it's a little bit ping sensitive to time it well in the middle of a fight and you're trying to kite and pay attention to things, especially if you're outnumbered, but you're gonna get used to it with time, especially if you have a decent ping instead of high one. But always keep in mind, cast 7 first and then cast the teleportation. Hopefully with little bit of delay, like not immediately pressing them together, this one first and then the teleportation. And if you make sure you land the unleash ambush skill, you will be removing other boons, and so you corrupt some, you remove some, you will really hindering your enemies very weakened very fast and covered with insane amount of conditions. There is also few tricks you can do with this skill. This skill can lower the cooldown by 1 second every time you hit or your bit hit, which means it works very great with smoke skill because it's guaranteed to land some of the hits on smoke assault. As you see here, it's very easy to land extra, and it can be very good if you make sure you land poison volley with it. So it's like 5 hits in a single hit, which lower it by extra 5 seconds. I recommend you stick with force fortification and this setup. Don't change anything of it if possible, because even if it's tempting a bit to go something like entangle or something like that, the stability and the 50% reduction to power damage and the resolution is very good, and adding to that a barrier it just make you really stationary, and you can save some of other survival tools you have. Like you can take hits without dodging them, so you save the extra dodge for extra protection later or something like that. You can save like flexes, you're not really needing to get out. You can save your stun breaks because you already have a very long stability, and it's one of the reasons why we have celestial gear. Too long or higher boon duration made the stability higher than 8 seconds, and even the resistance and resolution, so you're not punished by blind, weakness, vulnerability, or anything. You cannot even be even immobilized and stuff like that. You can move very, very freely. Now, another thing about this build, and why do I think it is very unique, like you can't really take this style to Soul Beast or Droid or something like that. It will not function the same. Like it is possible, but will have its problem, and it works the best way with Untamed. Simply because you have a serious damage using only short bow. So short bow and those two sigil, we have a lot of cover condi, and it does a lot of condis, and we even use in sharpened stone. But we have the unleash ambush skill, which means we can also make the enemy weaker because we take their boons, and we have extra application of conditions simply on short bow by applying those spit skills. If we CC the enemy, we can land extra vulnerability from this one, we can have the enemy slowed, and we can apply repetitive chill. And with the unleash ambush skill, it's more torment, more weakness, even more of that if you're going with this trait. And also we can corrupt boons because of this skill if it lands, since we are running corrupting vines. So more condition because of the corrupt, more boons removed, extra condition because of the bit self with a total control, unleash ambush skill, and those two sigils. However, it's not only that, we can be tanky enough to stay on short bow for a while without even switching weapon. So we don't have to rotate weapons, burn skills too much like Soul Beast probably need to. And Soul Beast to have serious survivability against condition, I'm using cleansing and energy in both weapon sets, for example. And I'm using bear stance to cleanse out of condition. But for Untamed, we have a projectile deflection field that we can like leap on to apply weakness. We can hit projectile on to apply poison, because it's a combo field poison basically. So we can do a lot of things in it, and it will save us from those hits or incoming projectile, so it makes us more tanky. We have extra vitality than Soul Beast. We have a very tanky elite skill that save us for a long time. We can use Troll Inguent since we have this skill. We don't need Bear Stance, which already Soul Beast exclusives to cleanse out of condition. We already have this skill to cleanse everything and even Grand Barrier, so we have higher healing from the healing skill itself. So it can afford to fight for a while on short bow only and still be tanky and covering itself with protection against projectile, with decent even healing, building up healing, not simply from poison but from every hit you do because of this trait. So this iteration or this style of fighting for Untamed work best for Untamed. So we talked about what's good or the advantage about the Untamed, but what is the disadvantage? So you are like a Scourge or a Renegade. You can apply insane amount of condition immediately, multiple conditions to cover your damage through sigil, weapon skills, utility skills like sharpened stone, even corruption, and extra skills you get from the bit, while you can control the bit accurately with even the unleash ambush skill from the weapon itself, which is a unique playstyle none other than Untamed capable of. But you don't have the adaptability in outnumbered situations that the Druid have, which is the best in it, because too much healing, access to easier stealth and better kiting, or the insane burst with killing people in second like Soul Beast, whether you blade power or hybrid like my build, still condition but utilize one move back, so it can do insane amount of condition and power damage to burst through sustain immediately. So you have good damage and really good cover, but it's not up there as Soul Beast, nor the survivability is as Druid. However, you are the tankiest ranger, which is at least a part of an advantage. You still have projectile deflections that work in a way maybe a little bit even better than Druid, since it's a bubble that you can surround yourself with. You don't have to be stationary, that it can move and it can lock two targets with a field that can be used aggressively. And you have this skill which is insane. You have the highest health. You have permanent, if you want 10% lower damage, you get the point. There is a lot of ways that you are more tanky than any other ranger before. However, there is other problems that arise, which is probably the most difficult build, and Untamed in generally difficult or more difficult than other rangers, since you get to control the bit completely with extra skills in 2 bits. And that can be a bit punishing, which means your kiting is limited. Like Greatsword, unlike Staff for example, have this skill and the block. If you're playing Soul Beast, you, for example, have Smoke skill, you will always have Smoke skill. You can revive it by merging with it, but Untamed is the most punishable ranger in the game if the bit dies. If the bit dies in a core ranger, you lose insane amount of damage, but most of the time you only blink power because condition core ranger is almost unviable. So you end up simply with lower switching between bit, lower cooldown, so you can revive it again or simply go to the next bit. If you're playing Druid, you don't count on the bit this much, you lose some CC, but the Druid have great sustain and can control the fight anyway. If you're playing Soul Beast, you can revive it. If you're playing Untamed, well, that's a bit of a problem, because you don't only lose the access to the bit itself, you lose the extra skills that was part of it, which is, the Untamed is really reliant on them. So you count a lot on your survivability on having a projectile field, for example. Suddenly this projectile field does not work. It's not 25-second cooldown anymore, it's actually 1 minute. And whenever you switch bit, it will be on 1 minute cooldown, which means the second bit can be killed easy, and this cycle will continue. So the moment your bit dies, you're probably gonna follow it very fast. You can, however, protect the bits a little bit further, since this skill, for example, affects bits, as you see, not only me, and you can protect the bit from the projectile attacks. So there is ways to keep your bit alive, and you need to be really careful, because the punishing for dead bit for Untamed is unparalleled on any other ranger, which probably the worst downside I found with the Untamed is the bit dying is crucial. Now for the food. I'm running actually Celestial food, this one, the Ascended one, and I recommend you actually do it. If you don't have Celestial one, it's okay, it's not the end of the build. You can simply use the normal cheap one that we're running, Tropical Peppermint Cake, but since we are running Celestial and we don't have the insane healing or resetting a fight like Druid, I would really recommend going with the Celestial, the oyster soup, the sesame oyster soup. But like I said, you can go with the cheap. You can even go with holographic cake, the one from Super Adventure books. It gives you extra endurance regeneration. You can be dodging more and gaining protection from dodging, which means healing. It's come from the traits Companion's Defense and Right Draws. And for the extra condition damage, Compact Quality Tuning Crystal from World vs. World that you get from this merchant normally, or from the boxes that you get from ranking and stuff. This one, you can simply buy canned food and open the canned food to choose 5 of the food that we are using. So that's it for the build. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share if you find it interesting. Give me any feedback if you want, or if you have any further questions, put them in the comment and I'll be reading and answering everything if possible, and I'll be seeing you next time. Peace.
Where am I going now? Just falling over dreams. Now I'm just so far gone, this isn't what it seems. Taking me so damn long, it's fading from belief. I need to slow this down, it's burning from beneath. Come break this line before tomorrow dies. Holding on for what is worth my life. And now in time, I'll make it up the vine. Find my way to giants in the sky. Tonight it comes to life.
if you feel like I do right now. Don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
Show
glad that the brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And I quit it cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business so humongous, you would think that heaven's in it. Oh man, I'm all that, yeah I'm all that. Working for that whip, yeah that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold. Yeah, they saying I'm the man. Facts bro, lot of haters, tell me where they at though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap though. Want me on your song, throw a couple stacks, yo. Everybody wanna do the same thing, yo. That's why we ain't on the same page. Do my own thing, and I maintain. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah. Going mainstream. Damn. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Woo. Going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. They saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Lot of haters, tell me where they at, though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap, though. Want me on your song, throw a couple steps, yo. Everybody wanna do the same thing. That's why we ain't on the same page. Do my own thing, and I maintain. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream.
Take a moment right here, feeling like it's out gear. Driving towards the sun with a rose and a gun. Feel the wind in my hair, going nowhere I swear. Like an outlaw on the run, dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no. Hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no. Keep running. Told my boss that I'm done. Had no luck with my mom. Say, what will you do with your life? You know it's hard to survive. A cigar in my mouth, maybe guilty but proud. Now I'm